Hey everybody, good evening. It's it's Ellen Lewis from Crazy for You, and thank you guys so much for being here. I hope you are ready to talk about cotton yarn. I think a lot of people, a lot of knitters tried cotton yarn once, hated it, and never tried it again, never went back. But what I'm going to show you tonight is that there are all kinds of different cotton yarns with different feels, and there might even be something that you absolutely love. So let's say hi to everybody. I've been chatting here kind of before we went live. So hey, Glenn. Hey, Ellen and Polly. Sandy, nice to see you. Hi, Barbara. How are you? Hi, Terry. Hey, Amy. Hello, hello. Hey, Emily. Oh, my goodness. So nice to see you. Hi, Rita. How are you? Hey, Anna. Oh, my goodness. So happy to have you guys here with me. So tell me in the comments what you think about cotton yarn, just generally what you think about it. For me, cotton yarn is enormously important because, first of all, I love to knit all year round. I love to have a hand knit wardrobe. And here in the mid Atlantic, cotton is kind of an all seasons fabric. I will wear cotton in the wintertime because, unlike Sandy, who's in Maine, it's just not that cold here most of the time. So, cotton yarns are incredibly versatile, because you can wear them for such a long period of time. And if you're in the South, there might be, 90% of your days that are appropriate for cotton. So, yeah, absolutely. So I think it's really important to kind of look at cotton and give cotton a fair shake. Now, let's see. Emily loves cotton cashmere. Absolutely. Summer Light DK. Hi, Jean. Yes, absolutely. Oh, good. Well, I'm glad that I'm getting such a good response on the cotton, and that makes me feel so, so happy. Now, as you know, there are literally thousands of cotton yarns out there. I don't carry them all in the store, and I couldn't possibly go over them all. I mean, we want to keep this to half an hour, right? I don't think either of us has the time or the energy tonight to go over more than just a few. So what I have done is I have picked worsted weight, 100% cotton, pretty much, to go over, just to show you some of the differences in the cottons and what those differences in construction mean for you and for your fabric and your garments. So, yes, Anna says soft yak is beautiful. Yes, soft yak is gorgeous. And maybe one day this year I will do a presentation on DK weight cotton or cotton blends, because I agree with you, Anna, soft yak DK is gorgeous, gorgeous yarn. But I think you'll find that there are some yarns here that you'll like very well also. Thank you, Ellen. Ellen is commenting on my sweater. I'm so pleased with this. This is one of those sweaters that you think you don't have very much time to wear here in Maryland, but it is cold today. So this is just perfect. Very, very cozy. It's knitted in big wool. So I love this one. Very, very favorite. Okay, so let's dig in, and I'm going to share my screen here. I'm going to share it all together. Okay, so this is hand knit cotton. This is the first one, and this is by Rowan. This is a worsted weight traditional construction yarn. So if you look at it, you can see it has applied construction. It's actually 4 plies of yarn. And I have it swatched here. So let's talk about that. Hang on a quick moment. We have a question here. In sewing, it's recommended to pre-wash a cotton fabric before sewing. When knitting with cotton, we're not concerned about shrinkage. Can you please explain? Okay, that's a really, really great question and a great point. So we are concerned about shrinkage with cotton yarn. Absolutely. which is why I don't know if you read the newsletter or if you subscribe to my newsletter. I talked about some tips for knitting with cotton yarn. And one of them is swatching the cotton and washing your swatch. You're not going to wash the yarn before you knit it, because that would just be a tangled disaster. And you can't do like you can with cotton, but you can wash your swatch. And knowing what's going to happen with your swatch after you wash it is wildly important. So if you've knit something and you think you've got the right gauge, before you go and cast on your project, go ahead and wash that swatch the way you plan to care for it. And then you will know whether that fabric is going to shrink up or in, or whether it's going to stretch out, or just how it's going to behave. And then when you're knitting your garment, you can adjust the length that you knit based on what your swatch did after knitting. I hope that helps. So, all right, back on hand knit cotton. Okay, so here is hand knit cotton. I'm actually swatching for the Veronique, which is this garment from the cover of the Current Rowing magazine. You're all familiar with that, I am sure. So, yeah, so here it is, and I love it. I think it's beautiful. You can see that it makes a very symmetrical stitch. You know, one leg doesn't lean over more. It's a very, very round yarn, and it's not the worst to knit with. You know, I was talking with somebody, and they were saying that they had knit with cotton and that it was just really hard on the hands. I don't find this to be super hard on my hands. It's not like knitting with wool, of course, but it does have a little bit of a soft feel because it's a better quality cotton. You know, we talk a lot about how fibers are graded, and cotton, just like wool, is graded by the length of its staple. Cotton staples are shorter than merino staples, so they tend to need a tighter twist. And the tighter the twist, the harder it is. And if you're dealing with a poor quality cotton, the kind that makes string, those staples are really short, and they have to give it a really, really tight twist to hold them all in place. But when you have a nicer quality cotton, and this is a good Greek cotton, so long staples, much softer, much nicer, and you don't have to twist it quite so tightly. So it doesn't feel hard and stringy like some cotton that you might have knit with before. So anyway, I think it's beautiful. I love the stitch definition. I love how crisp those stitches are. Okay, so we have a question from Sandy. How does hand knit cotton compare to cotton cashmere? Okay, so hand knit cotton is rounder and less soft than the cotton cashmere. So the hand knit cotton has a tighter twist than the cotton cashmere. You also want to remember that hand knit cotton is a worsted weight. So it is going to be a larger yarn and a larger fabric. The cotton cashmere has that little bit of cashmere in there, and that allows it to be twisted even a little less tightly than the hand knit cotton. So it does have a softer feel. It's different. It is a different feel than the cotton cashmere. So I hope that helps. Okay, so yeah, so I'm working this in Tarja, and I think it's important that you have this kind of crispness with the stitches. You know, this is a very graphic design, and you want the fabric to be distinct. You know, you want your stitches to show up, and you don't really kind of want those two colors to bleed into each other. So you're really not looking for a very soft yarn here. This is a very durable yarn. So if you made a garment from this, it's going to stand up to washing and wearing for a long time. I personally don't put my cotton garments into a hot dryer. I usually let them dry flat, and you know how things get a little crispy when they dry flat, and then I toss them in a warm dryer to kind of fluff them up and soften them. And I think if you do that, you're going to find that This yarn will soften up a bit, but it won't, it will last a lot longer. So that's just a thing to be aware of. Okay, so the next one I want to talk about is the one that Ellen had asked about, and this is Inca Echo. So this is a beautiful yarn, 100% organic cotton dyed with minimally impactful dyes. And let me just tell you a little bit about the company. I love this company because it's a woman-owned company, and the woman who owns it now, Star Galler, is the great-great-granddaughter of the person who founded this company in New York. And they are just absolutely lovely people. She's an artist, and she's just tremendous. And the yarn is beautiful. So you want to talk about a really, really soft yarn. This is a beautifully soft yarn. Let me get it in the camera and show you what that looks like. Okay, so you can see that this has a little bit of an interesting ply. It is still a worsted weight. This is happy anywhere between 17 and 20 stitches over 4 inches. But it does have a little bit of what she calls a fantasy ply. Can you see that? So a little bit thick and thin, but it is not mercerized. It's very fluffy. I mean, and you know, hand knit cotton is not mercerized either, but this is a very softly spun yarn. And like I said, with a little bit of thick and thin. And I have worked with this yarn many times. Here is a piece of fabric that I have knitted with it. So you can see that little bit of thick and thin gives a very interesting texture to the fabric. This is stockinette, and this is a double seed stitch. And you can see that the fabric is not quite as crisp. Okay, the stitch definition is not quite as sharp as with the hand knit cotton. Let's turn this light on. Does that help? Maybe a little bit. Okay. But it is so soft, really, really lovely and soft next to the skin. In exchange for this kind of softness, though, you are giving up that stitch definition, and especially when you go to wash it. So you can absolutely machine wash, tumble dry Inca Echo. It doesn't really shrink or do anything icky, but you will lose the stitch definition even more. So it doesn't have great stitch definition to start. It's counting on the little bit of thick and thin to give the fabric its own interest. But if you machine wash and tumble dry this, your stitches will melt into a lovely, delicious, softer than soft fabric, but you won't see your individual stitches. You know, if you have put a lot of time and energy into cables or, you know, some kind of knit purl motif of sailboats or whatever, you're going to lose it if you're using this yarn. So this is not a yarn I would recommend for fancy stitch work. Looks like we have some comments, so let's see. Very pretty. Looks like an Emma yarn for me. Oh my goodness, Ellen, if you let me just say, I love Ellen Orr, but everything looks like an Emma to her, which I get because Emma is a fabulous garment. I think you absolutely could do an Emma in this. I have knit it at 11, and maybe next time, or, you know, I'll text you a picture of the fabric at 11. It's a very different fabric. It's very light, it's very open, and I'll show that with you. But yeah, you could absolutely do an Emma with this. Super soft, and I think you'd love it there in New Orleans where you are. So yes, beautiful fabric. Oh, Elon, not Emma. Okay, all right. I'm done teasing you, sweetie. So, right, when I get to the next yarn, we'll talk a little bit about some of the other characteristics. So anyway, this is a beautiful yarn. It comes in a lovely palette. It's super soft. You will definitely want to swatch this. If you're doing intarsia or color work, you'll want to swatch it, and you will want to wash it the way you plan to care for it, because cotton yarn takes so much more dye to get these saturated colors. So you want to be aware if the colors are going to bleed into one another. You want to know that before you knit your garment and not after, right? Okay, so that is Inca Echo. Beautiful stuff, right? Okay, so the next one I want to talk about is Cumulus. Lots of you are already familiar with Cumulus. Show you the label close up. And this is by Juniper Moon Farms. Again, a worsted weight cotton. It does have 6% nylon in there, and that's because of the construction. So let me show you this yarn. Okay, so here it is, and you can see that it is a chainette construction. Okay. Let me see. Come on now. Is it better up here? Hang on. Yeah, maybe. I shouldn't have picked white. But you can see that it is a chainette construction, which means that the finer fibers have been basically knitted into a tube, and that gives the fabric additional elasticity, and it makes it really, really light. It has more stitch definition than the Inca Echo, but not as much as the hand knit cotton. I have some fabric here knitted in the Cumulus that I want to share with you. So this is a little kid sweater. So here's the stockinette, and here is I call this a rice stitch. It's a vertical double moss stitch. So you see 1-1 for 2 rows, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1 for 2 rows, and then purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1. So like I said, a softer stitch definition than the crisp one that we have from hand knit cotton, but not as soft a stitch definition as the Inca Echo. So Ellen asked about the Inca Echo being expensive. So we will get into that. I don't think it's expensive, but let's talk about that as we move through. So this is the Juniper Moon Cumulus, very soft. And because of that construction, it resists pilling, which is very, very nice. And it is so soft. I mean, people pick this up and they're like, oh, this is so soft. It's beautiful next to the skin, really lovely, more durable, right? And it's really light. So, we've talked about how yarn is constructed and the different construction methods. And this is a chainette construction, which means that it's really light. So if you look at this is a 100-gram skein of Cumulus, and it has 251 yards. All right. The Inca Echo is a 100-gram skein. It has 140 yards. So they're not the same price, and you'd have to do a yard for yard comparison. But my point is that in 100 grams, this only has 140 yards, which means that it's heavier. Okay, so this one is much, much lighter, and you get more yardage per skein. Even if you were to look at the hand knit cotton, I did the math. There are 50-gram skeins, but if you did it the 100-gram equivalent, something like 165 yards. So it's right in between the Inca Echo and the Cumulus in terms of weight per yard. Okay, does that make sense? So when you think about expense, I don't think that the Inca Echo is wildly expensive. I do think that it has its place, right? It has its own purpose. So those are the two. Okay, the other one, let's see. Yes, Rita's done several things in the Cumulus, and I know you have too, Ellen. It is beautifully soft, and it now comes in dégradé colors, which means it goes from one color to the next in this beautiful gradient, and it also has rainbow is the one that goes through multiple colors, and dégradé is like tonal, from dark to light of the same tone. So they're beautiful, and they look really nice with the Cumulus solids. So here's this little top. I'm just going to share this with you. I think it's really cute. little kid sweater. Some lucky little kid, right? Okay, so the other one that I wanted to talk about, now we aren't going to talk a ton about this because I did a whole podcast on it last week, and this is the Four Seasons. So let's show that. Okay, so again, this is a little heavier than the others, but again, a very round yarn, bouncier than the others because of that microfiber in it, and it makes a very pretty fabric. Okay, so really, really nice. So those are the 4 worsted weight cottons that I wanted to talk about. And my point, the title of this podcast was The Best Cotton Yarn. And I think that's a little bit misleading because honestly, there is no best cotton yarn. These are 4 cotton yarns that I like very much. There are 4 worsted weight cotton yarns that I like very much. And, heavy worsted is about as big as you're going to get with cotton because it does get sort of heavy in terms of weight. But the cotton that you choose when you're going through the process of knitting a garment and choosing yarn for it, there's so many factors to consider. And the best yarn is the yarn that's going to give you the results that you want. Do you want stitch definition? Do you want a really crisp fabric? Do you want it to be durable? Do you want a wide color palette? Those are characteristics of hand knit cotton. If you look at the current issue of Rowan magazine, you'll see that the garments that they have in there with a lot of the stitch work, the cables and such, are knit in hand knit cotton, or they're knit in Summerlight DK, which is something I might talk about a little bit. If you want that softness and you're doing something in stockinette and you just want to have the yarn do all the work in terms of texture and just make a beautiful fabric, Inka Echo is beautiful. There's really not much softer than that against your skin. If you are doing something and it's important to you that the fabric be light and that you have good stitch definition or pretty good stitch definition, Cumulus is the way to go. It's washable, makes a beautiful fabric. It's lovely to knit with. It makes beautiful baby blankets. And it really does have a good range as far as how you can knit it. So you could knit it on a 9 or even a 10. You could knit it down tight at 5, 5 stitches to the inch, or you could knit it at maybe like 3.5 or 3 3/4, and that would still work for you. So that would definitely work. As would this Four Seasons. So I did swatch this for you, Ellen. And this is the Four Seasons on an 11 at 3 stitches to the inch. So you absolutely could do an Emma with the Four Seasons. I think you're going to really love it. So we have a little bit of time left. So what I thought I would do is maybe talk real quickly about another cotton yarn that's very popular, and that is Summerlight DK. Summerlight DK comes in DK. It also comes in 4-ply. It's a very soft yarn. Let me show you the fabric that's knitted in it. I knit a sweater in this. So it's very pretty, but it is not as durable. So I find that while it is very soft and I love it, it does get some of these little, these little pills on it. And that is because Summerlight DK has a brushed texture. In order to get that softness on it, after the yarn is spun, they brush it very lightly, which gives that soft halo around the yarn and makes it so lovely against your skin. But as with everything, you're trading something for the softness. You can't have everything. You can't have softness and durability and crispness and machine washability and tumble dry. Okay, let's see. What sweaters would Inka Echo work for? Okay, Inka Echo, I actually taught a class, a top-down, in-the-round raglan pullover in the Inka Echo. It was absolutely beautiful. You want to use Inka Echo for something that you don't mind if it stretches out a little bit. You don't want a lot of fancy stuff. If you just want a nice soft and lovely stockinette fabric that just feels like a cozy sweatshirt, that would be a great project for it. So anything that just feels relaxed and looks relaxed, because the stitch definition is relaxed. The fabric itself is relaxed because the twist is so light. I hope that helps. And if you have a thought about what you might like to knit in Inka Echo, give me a quick text and I will be happy to talk about that with you. So it is really pretty. Barbara, can we do the Veronique with 4 seasons? So the 4 seasons is, I knit the 4 seasons on a US 6 and I got 18 stitches over 4 inches. And I can tell you it was no treat to knit it this tightly. I don't know that you couldn't get gauge. Now, if you're okay messing with gauge, knitting a smaller size or reworking the sizing in this, you could use 4 seasons. But it's a different garment, right? This yarn's native gauge is 16 to 18. So it's going to be, the stitches are going to be larger, right? But the effect is going to be similar. You also don't have quite the same color palette. And part of the beauty of Veronique, Barbara, is that it's got these 4 greens, or in my case, I've got black, white, gray, and pink. And I've put together many kits for other knitters with colors that work for them. So you don't have quite that same flexibility with the 4 seasons because the range, the palette is not as expansive. So Ellen, Elan then. Okay, Ellen, I'm going to have to send you a little twist of this because I think Elan isn't that knit at 20? I think you'd find Inka Echo heavy in Elan. Part of what's so nice about Elan is that it is a very light fabric. You guys were talking about Shelley Anderson's design, Elan, which is this very oversized, beautiful garment that we knit in Nora Osaginyu. But I think that the Inka Echo might be a little heavy for that. I would try it, if you're thinking, I would try it in maybe Summer Light 4-ply. That would be a good cotton for that project. All right. Hi, Jackie. How are you? Let's see. I live in the Northwest UK. Not too many days are sunny enough to wear cotton. Oh, my goodness. But it's a great layering piece. So, yeah, cotton is actually fairly warm, especially if it's not as crisp. So the Inka Echo is a pretty warm fabric, because it is lofty and it does trap the air in there. Whereas something like hand knit cotton, which is very tightly twisted and it doesn't have any loft, which means it doesn't have air in there, it's not going to trap air and keep you insulated in any way. So those fibers that are tightly twisted and, kind of squinched up, like any kind of mercerized cotton is going to be much cooler than a not mercerized cotton. So I would say that even Cumulus is maybe not as much of a summer garment fiber as it is in all seasons for people who just don't wear wool at all. So again, you just have to try it and see. It's like everything, whatever the question is, the answer is, well, you have to swatch it and see what you think. But yeah, so I hope that helps. Any other thoughts real quick before we go about cotton? Any questions or anything that I can share with you about any of the yarns that I have shared? It is nice to know that cotton makes such a wonderful blending fabric. Some of my favorite cotton yarns are blended with silk or linen or microfiber or even wool, which gives them a lightness and an elasticity. So 100% cotton or close to 100% cotton is a very different fabric than one where cotton is bringing all of its great soft characteristics to bear on another yarn, another fiber like wool or whatever, that together they make just a beautiful marriage, right? So maybe I'll do a podcast on some of the cotton blends that I think make beautiful fabrics. Like we've talked about soft Jack DK, we've talked about cotton cashmere. All of those make, a different fabric that has different characteristics than 100% cotton. So, yes, I do love Rowan cotton wool. Absolutely. That's one of my favorites, Rita. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Try to explain things. My goal is for you to understand why, not just, okay, do this or make this out of this, but to really understand why you're making a choice, because we do have lots of choices to make when we choose yarn. And we want to make sure that we're getting, if we're substituting yarn or whatever, we're getting the results that we expect. So that comes from knowing why and making a very conscious choice. So, okay, well, I hope you have enjoyed this little presentation on worsted weight cotton. And I hope that if you are not a cotton lover, that you will give cotton a try. Wanted to real quick say that we are doing a knit along for this cute little sweater, which is why I'm swatching it. It is the, as I said, the Veronique from the current issue of Rowan 73. Beautiful garment. And that is starting at the end of April. And that's going to be super fun. So if you're interested in that and you would like me to pick out some colors for you, call the shop or email me and I will be happy to do that. Until then, keep knitting and create something beautiful. Good night, everybody.